Hey everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade and I'm a mindset coach and personal trainer specializing in HA and ED recovery and female specific training protocols. Today, as you can probably hear through my smile, is I'm joined by my wonderful best friend and HA recovery buddy, Claudia, who is an expert in HA recovery and fertility. Welcome, beautiful lady.
Thank you. I find that my smile is growing bigger and bigger and bigger every single time that I participate to the podcast. I'm so
Well,
happy to be back.
especially since having Ruben, we've gone from talking every single day to
Multiple
talking
times a day.
once or twice a week. So whenever we get a podcast in or a live, it kind of feels like Christmas at the moment.
Absolutely. I don't like that. We have to change it, Jade.
We do, and we will.
We
Everything's
will.
settling down, and we've got so many topics on our list of what we want to discuss and share with our listeners. But we thought today we'd start with a juicy one, which is, should I stop exercise in HA recovery? What are your thoughts on that?
I will say no. I'm gonna go for a straightforward no to begin with, and then we're gonna go through all the layers and all the different colors. I didn't stop training when I was recovering my period, and I find that 90% of the women that we work with, they don't have to stop training completely to restore their hormones and support their fertility. Having said that, there is a small percentage that could absolutely benefit from changing their training routine after they have tried everything under the sun and still they haven't managed to get the period back. But my first thought is no, simply because exercise is healthy. Exercise is welcome in your life. It's not something to be scared of. It's more about discussing the quantity, the quality of the exercise, and also finding ways to make sure that you're working with your body instead of against your body. And now I'm curious to hear your point of view, Jade. What would you say? Shall someone stop exercise to get the period back?
No, I just don't think so. I
No.
think there's so many levers that we can pull before we need to pull that one.
Mm,
Um, and funnily enough, it's actually a conversation I had with one of my lovely ladies today, which is when it comes to HA recovery, we've got our few different levers. We've got the exercise lever, we've got the nutrition, we've got the stress, we've got sleep, and we've got exercise. And as you said, for the most part, women can restore their cycle while still exercising if they're being compliant to certain boundaries of the types of exercise they're doing and how long they're doing it for. And they're following a nutrition protocol. Because at the end of the day, we're just looking at an energy balance. We can complicate it with our emotions all we want because it is a very emotional experience. But the reality is, when we find energy balance, our body is going to find peace and it's going to be okay. What that looks like for the individual woman will vary, but that's part of the fun, is actually diving into it and seeing what your body can recover doing versus feeling like I can only be who I am now or not exercising at all and both feel wrong. And then
mm,
suddenly women feel like they're in such a rut when really they should be feeling empowered because, excuse me, we're actually in a position where we can tweak things and see how our body responds and then continue to make changes. Like nothing has to be permanent. It's just this inviting and curiosity.
And I think that it's important to welcome flexibility because if you were a woman that used to run when you lost a period, it does not mean that you will want to run again in the future. And here I'm just talking from personal experience. I loved my cardio. I loved my heat training and the running. I've never gone back to it. Instead, I am back at the gym. And I found that this resonates with most of the women that we work with. They start by, for example, loving their cardio activities to then finding themselves weight training or doing Pilates or doing yoga or discovering hiking, walking, lap dance, and so many other things. Um, I'm wondering, Jade, do you think that there is one exercise that is actually a no-go in period recovery?
I think if there was to be one that's going to set you back, it's definitely going to be the HIIT training. Purely
Mm,
because we look at the already high cortisol response and then we're putting HIIT training on top of it. And also, I guess to add in insight to HIIT training is what is marketed to women as HIIT training isn't actual HIIT training. If you can
Mm-hmm.
do 45 minutes of HIIT, it is not HIIT. HIIT is 10 seconds of a max effort that you need potentially 2 minutes to recover from, that you then go do another 10 seconds, insanely max effort that you can't breathe, you feel like you're going to die, and then you recover for 2 minutes. And you might do a handful of rounds of that, and then your session is done because you are completely spent. That's actually what HIIT training is. And we're starting to get a lot more education on that from some incredible
Yes.
experts. And Claudia knows exactly
Shall
what
we
I'm
name
talking about.
names?
Look, like if you don't already know, Claudia and I are pretty much obsessed with Dr. Stacey Sims and Gabrielle Lyons. So most of the insights we get come from all of their wonderful and well researched information.
Mm.
And yes, sorry. So looping that is, if there was to be one that would hinder recovery, I would say it's what's described as HIIT, but it's not actually HIIT. It's those 45-minute sessions. But that being said, women can recover during those sessions. It's how they're using them. And there is something to be said of why you're choosing those forms of exercise and how it's benefiting your health, depending what your goals are. And I guess to spin the angle when it comes to exercise is there is one thing I do encourage women to explore, is that even though I believe you can recover while exercising, there is a very powerful lesson to be learned, proving to yourself that you can take a week off or 2 weeks off or even 3 weeks off and everything's okay. I think that can be quite invaluable to most women that fall into the HA category, because we've got this like, I'm nothing without it. And it mentally can be quite empowering to realize you can still be everything without it, but you just choose to do it because you love it.
That's actually a good point, because most women, they think that they are going to lose control if they stop the training routine, but the reality is that they are actually gaining control. They are gaining control over their choices and what they really want to do to restore that period. And in regards to what you said about the HIIT training, it's absolutely crazy that we consider HIIT training a 45-minute session where you're basically out of breath for 45 seconds with only 15 seconds of recovery. This is insane. And it's also so very popular. And I think that that could be detrimental for someone's health, on top of not sleeping well at night. So exercising when sleep deprived, especially for new moms as well in the postpartum phase, that's a big one. But also for women that are very busy, have a hectic social lives, they are working full time. That's also quite detrimental. So exercising when sleep deprived, on an empty stomach. But I don't know about you, Jade, but I've also noticed that women that tend to do lots of cardio activities, such as HIIT, they don't fuel as much as women that love going to the gym. So, for example, a marathon runner tend to wake up in the morning, have half of a banana, like some very small glucose, go for a long run, come back, have a piece of toast, and then go on with her day. Instead, the women that goes to the gym, they're very specific in terms of getting in the right amount of protein, fats, and carbs after the training session. And that's normally what I really want to see in the diet diary of someone that is training. Doesn't matter what they're currently doing. And in terms of cardio activities and HIIT specifically, you mentioned something very important, the cortisol response. Sometimes we tend to exercise because we're feeling anxious, because we want to get out of our life for a second. But if we do exercise from a place of anxiety and stress, we're just piling adrenaline and cortisol on top of a body that is already completely stressed out, depleted. Yeah, and that's all that I wanted to add.
I
In
think what
your
you said though with the HIIT training, even your personal experience, and I can definitely relate to it too, is I also find with other women as well that when you're in a high cortisol state, you tend to be more drawn to HIIT activity. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but it's almost like I'm already on fire, so let's just throw some gas on it and it feels really good. Right. So we've got this like forever churning engine. And then we actually slow things down a little bit and see what it feels like to not be in a high stress state. And I don't know about you, Claudia, but I remember a particular shift where I went from, I didn't even know that I was like consistently buzzing all the time. I didn't know how stressed my body was and how highly caffeinated and undernourished I was
Mm.
until I actually started changing my behaviors. And I remember one day just being like, huh, this is weird. I had this sense of calm and I was always happy. Like it wasn't like I was this ball of anxiety. I definitely had a phase of that. But when I chose to recover my period, I wasn't at my worst. I was actually in a pretty good spot, just not good enough. And when you get to feel that for a longer period of time, suddenly hit sessions don't feel as good because the difference between how your body should feel versus smashing it in a hit session, I don't know, it's not as inviting anymore. Whereas when you're in a really high cortisol state, it's almost like you're matching it and you can level it up. Um, and that tends to be that feedback where women go from really stressed out to doing lots of hit training, they calm their body down, and then they suddenly find peace in strength training because they
Mm.
like to feel the short burst of intensity when lifting really heavy weight. And then they like that sense of calm that comes after it. And then they have an intensity and then they have a sense of calm.
Mm.
Um, and that element of power, I think, is really wonderful. And all the information we're then getting with how good it is to have muscle mass and the best way to achieve it. I think once we're in a position to be open to other training styles and we've allowed our body to settle, that's why strength training is just so much more appealing to women, especially women with physique goals.
And let's not forget women that wants to support their bone health as well, or their
So important.
cardiovascular health. Strength training is so important for that. But something that you said really touched me because personally speaking, I used to love my HIIT training when I didn't have a period, obviously. And I realized back at that time, I got to a point where I realized that I was really happy while I was doing it. Happy is a big word. I was just always looking at the clock for the session to finish, but I was happy to finish the session. But then I would really be cranky and unpleasant with the people around me. So that was a sign that I was living in a stressful state. And I'm very curious about women that comes to us and they say, yoga is not for me, or I don't like meditations because it's not for me. I've tried it before, and clearly it's for someone else, but not for me. And normally, when these women come out with a statement like that, I always think, oh, maybe because you need it more than others. You need that slowing down, the slow pace more than other women. And after you welcome that into your life, it's so much easier to shift from a cardio-based activity to a strength training based activity because you actually becomes more resilient from a mental perspective. And when you have to lift weight and when you have to be in discomfort for a few sets and no one is telling you to do but just your own willingness, you actually need the mental resilience. And I think that that's where you start feeling empowered. When you reach a point where you can exercise and lift every weight, when you can take a rest day without any guilt, and where you can actually sit down and do nothing without fidgeting or without feeling the need to occupy your time. What do you reckon, Jade?
I agree with everything you just said, but in particular, I have to loop back to that feedback of meditation's not for me, yoga's not for me. And don't get me wrong, I think at some point some people just might not like it, but when you're in fast forward or stuck in fast forward, a big reason why you don't like it is because you suck at it, right? And most women that we meet don't like being bad at stuff. All right. So
Yeah.
the first time they try and meditate, they've got this expectation that I'm going to be zen for a whole 60 seconds. And then they sit down and all they realize is their brain like a pinball in a pinball machine, like ding, 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 ding. What am I going to do after work? What am I doing before work? What am I training? What am I eating? Blah, 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 blah. And it is so loud in there that they go, oh, meditation's not for me. And if that's happening, it's especially for you, right? Because the lesson comes from learning how to go from that little pinball going ting, 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 ting to just full stop, right? And just stop the game and allowing thoughts to gradually come through the mind versus them being a whirlwind. And even yoga, if you're not flexible, yoga's really hard and it's boring. And if your mind is going a million miles, your body moving slowly feels quite unpleasant. A minute feels like 10. So if you do yoga or if you try meditation and you go, oh my gosh, I just hate it, and it's because you think you're not good at it, I would encourage you to set yourself out for a 14-day challenge or an 8-week self-paced boot camp where you actually commit to it for that duration, because by the end of it, you will see an improvement. And by the time you've seen an improvement, you'll start to
Yeah. I remember my first in yoga session. Oh my goodness, the discomfort. Like
like.
laying down for 5 minutes in one single posture, it was hell. It was just,
Yeah,
I shouldn't say hell because it wasn't properly hell, but I found it extremely
it's
challenging.
it's difficult, absolutely. And even
Mm,
meditating, uh, the idea of sitting still and not even being able to fidget your fingers or your toes or open one eye to look around, it can be quite hard.
yeah.
Um, but if you're experiencing that level of difficulty, it really is a sign that it needs to be practiced.
Mm.
Um,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that also there are different level of meditation. So if you're starting from a place where you're always fidgeting and you're resisting it, even meditating while walking or being more mindful in general can be a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one of my favorite things in HA recovery, and I still recommend it to ladies today, is a walking meditation.
Mm.
Don't have your headphones in, don't listen to your podcast. And all you want to do is go for your walk and listen for as many things as you can. Do you hear leaves rustling? Do you hear birds? Do you hear the cars driving by? Do you hear children playing? Do you hear someone yelling at somebody? And what do you see? Can you see an ant on the floor? Can you see a bird in the sky? Can you see a rabbit hopping along? Can you see a car? What can you smell? Like if you walk past homes at a particular time of night, you can smell maybe someone cooking pasta. Maybe you can smell bacon. Maybe you can smell a barbecue. Like there's actually so many senses we can tune into on a walk. But if you're new to meditation, that can be a wonderful start. And just allocate 3 minutes and then pop your headphones in and keep going. Um, or another, sorry, we've gone off topic, ladies, about well, should I exercise? But another one that's really good, and just be cautious of your eyes, but watching a candle flame. So just watching the
Oh
flame
my goodness,
dance,
yeah.
because it's oh, I don't know, it's quite enticing once you actually watch it. It's like the flame dances, and you can
I think that
really
that
get
was the only one
absorbed
that I
into
could
it
do. Yeah, I remember that I would switch the
because
light off.
you can kind of daydream at it and just zone in. But there's so many ways you can ease your way into it before you're ready to just sit still.
Now, Jade, shall we just name one thing that we really love about weight training? The things that we love the most.
One thing. God, Claudia.
Just one. Just pick
You make
one.
it harder.
I can
Oh,
start if you want.
yeah, go. Give me some time.
The
I need to
food,
categorize.
the extra food. People
Yes.
don't realize that if you really want to lift heavier weights and if you want to grow muscles and if you want to get stronger, you cannot do it with little food in your belly. And that is definitely my favorite things, because food all of a sudden becomes a way, a mean to get stronger. It becomes your friend. It's not your enemy anymore. It's not something that needs to be restricted, pushed away. It's actually recommended to increase your energy intake and to do it in a very mindful way. So I think that one of the things that I love the most about weight training is actually that capacity to welcome in a level of energy that women normally don't experience in life because we have never been told to eat that much and eat that freely, and so many times during the day as well. So sorry, being a nutritionist, I had to pick food, right?
Yeah, no, I love it. And the great thing about it is if you actually give yourself the opportunity to eat a little bit more before a training session or eat a little bit more for a week and observe how your training changes, you get a pretty positive feedback straight away. Like it's
Mm.
not like you need to wait to see the change. You'll see it quite quickly. Even myself now, I'll know if I'm having an average session. And then if I think about how I've eaten the last few days, I'll be like, oh, you know what, maybe I accidentally skipped something and I'm feeling it, versus when I'm really well fueled and I train really, really well. But the fast feedback on the fuel is really helpful. And I do find that women who are trying to increase their calories, that can almost be a really nice permission piece to eat more,
Yeah.
because they see how well it affects their training. And obviously, if you want body composition changes, you need to be able to train hard. You need to be able to lift heavy. And you will lift heavier if you're feeling well. Like, it's that simple. You really will.
It's that
Um,
simple.
and to your point earlier about the cardio bunnies, let's say, is they tend to be a lot more undernourished as well, because it suppresses your appetite so much. Sometimes it's so
Completely.
innocent, it's not like they're intentionally trying to underfuel. It's just it's really hard to eat sometimes after you've done a whole lot of cardio. And sometimes that's why women like it, because it's so easy to say no to food. I'm just not hungry.
Yeah,
But
and then
we
there
know
is the
that,
cardio followed by the caffeine, not only by skipping meals, but also the caffeine on top of it, which is a
yeah,
recipe
yeah,
for disaster.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the strength training really does stimulate the hunger, and we can see it go to good use, which is really fun.
And what's your
My
thing, Jade?
favorite thing about strength training, goodness me, you know what? I've always just loved lifting heavy things. Like, I love
Mm.
trying to match the strength of the men.
Mm.
Like, that's always inspired me. Um, you know, my upper body's always been quite strong. My lower body is definitely my weak spot. But if I can chest press what some of the men are doing in the gym, it makes me really happy.
It's amazing.
I love it.
But even like I can see amongst the moms at the school, for example, I am one of the only one that is capable of lifting my son, which is 22 kilos now, in
Really
the air. Yes. Um,
interesting.
which is very interesting because obviously I am the next generation compared to you, Jade, which seems shocking to say. But yeah, I was born in a world where we were told to be small. 1,200 calories
Mm,
was the maximum amount. Carbs were demonized, then fats were demonized. And
mm,
so women grew up with this very jelly-like kind of bellies, with very skinny, skinny arms, very skinny legs, walking all day, doing cardio activities, and not really worrying too much about the bone health until it was too late,
mm.
which is really sad. And that's something that we are on a mission to change.
Yeah, which is quite inspiring too, because I like being that role model for my kids, that they grow up knowing
Correct.
that strength training is important and feel is important. Like, we are the power to change, right? It's so cool. And that's a really good motivating factor too. Like, do you want to be able to pick up and play with your children when you have them? Or do you want to be
100%.
so lethargic that you can't play because it's just too exhausting?
Yes. And it's like going to my daughter and say, hey, I went to the gym today. Do you know how much I like press? 5 times your body weight. And she gets so shocked by it and she loves it. And
It's so fun.
I want her to see that in a
Yeah.
real life, a woman with a period that is present for the people that she loves, that goes to the gym and lift heavy shit and is going to be able to pack the boxes because I'm about to move, as Jade knows already. So he's going to be able to pack the boxes and lift them
Carry all
uh,
the things.
and carry them like all the other men are going to be doing. So thank you for allowing me to share that, Jade.
No, I love it. And what an inspiration to your little girl that you are. Now, Claudia, I could talk to you for days, but it's time for us to wrap things up. And ladies, if you are listening to this and you want to recover your period, you want to get strong, you want to feel the way how Claudia and I are describing, and how many other women are feeling right now after having a HA experience, please do reach out to us on Instagram or drop us an email. And we would love to help you achieve that, because we've helped so many women just like you. And we've gone through it firsthand ourselves. So we get it more than most. But for now, Claudia, thank you so, so much for your time. It's always such a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise, and I can't wait for our next live.
Let the countdown begin. All right, my love. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.